Welcome to Hangar 51 Files, where history's secrets, classified operations, and hidden truths come to light. From Cold War black ops to the future of warfare, from lost artifacts to emerging defense technologies, we investigate the stories buried beneath official narratives. No speculation, no clickbait, just hard-hitting research, expert analysis, and the pursuit of truth. You're now inside the briefing room. Stay sharp, stay curious. This is Hangar 51 Files.
You know, when we think about the Cold War, it's usually all about land, spies, missiles, that kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, the big ideological clash, the space race.
Exactly. But what if, some of the weirdest stuff was happening way down deep, under the waves?
That's exactly where we're going today. It's this hidden side of the Cold War, really.
Right.
And our sources today really shine a light on it. We're talking about the Soviet Navy during those, super tense decades and their encounters with, well, what they called unidentified submerged objects, USOs.
Okay, USOs. And we've got two really interesting sources for this deep dive. First up is Rebecca Kidder's account, Cold War Kid. She grew up in Berlin, daughter of an army officer, so it's a real first-hand look.
Right on the front lines, basically.
Yeah, her memories give us this amazing snapshot through a kid's eyes of what that was like. And then, totally different angle, we have this research document, Red Waters. And that gets into all these Soviet Navy reports about USOs, especially this bizarre thing they called Quackers.
Yes, the Quackers.
Yeah.
We'll definitely get into those super fast things showing up on sonar, just baffling them.
So the plan is, let's take Kidder's personal story from Berlin and this Red Waters document about Soviet mysteries and see how they kind of connect or maybe contrast, see what picture emerges.
Well, I think Kidder's experience is key for context. You really feel the Cold War's impact on just daily life.
How so?
She talks about armed guards on school buses. Imagine that. This was after the La Belle discotheque bombing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and extra security around schools. Her family actually lived off-post in Berlin. As a kid, maybe some of it felt normal, but looking back, it just shows the constant tension, right? That feeling that danger was always kind of lurking.
Absolutely. I mean, she describes Berlin itself, this divided city, cobblestone streets, old buildings in Zehlendorf, steeped in history. But then, right alongside that, there's barbed wire, armed guards everywhere. Bomb threats were apparently routine.
It's such a stark contrast, isn't it? History and this very immediate Cold War threat all mixed together.
Makes you think about the reality for kids growing up there.
Definitely. But it wasn't all danger intention.
Yeah.
Kidder also points out the good stuff, the unique things about living abroad then.
Like what?
Well, traveling around Europe, for one, getting exposed to different cultures, making friends not just with Berliners, but with kids from the French and British Allied forces.
Ah, right.
Even kids whose parents were diplomats from the Middle East. That kind of thing really broadens your horizons,
Yeah.
Probably in a way that staying in your hometown just wouldn't.
Yeah, that makes sense. You hear that a lot about military brats, right? That adaptability, independence. Kidder seems to reflect on that too.
She does. And get this, on their second tour in Berlin, the house they lived in.
Yeah.
A 4-bedroom villa, supposedly rumored to have been owned by Hitler's secretary.
No way. Seriously.
Yeah, complete with a wine cellar, a bomb shelter, maybe even an escape tunnel. Imagine living there.
That's intense. History layered on history. World War II echoes, Cold War reality, all in one place.
Exactly. And then she mentions the Grunewald Forest being nearby, this big natural space where they could go hiking and stuff. A bit of an escape from all the political weight, I guess.
It's important to remember the trade-offs, though. Kidder brings this up, too, the sacrifices.
So sure, being so far from family back in the States, missing birthdays, holidays, hometown stuff.
And the uncertainty of deployments always hanging over them.
Yeah, those are the realities for military families overseas. But she also saw this direct link between, say, history lessons in school and the stuff she saw every day, like the Kaiser Wilhelm Memorial Church, still damaged from the war. A constant reminder.
Okay, so we have this vivid picture of life on the Cold War front lines. Let's pivot now to what was happening under the water from the Soviet perspective. This Red Waters document and the whole USO mystery.
Right, and this is where it gets, well, really strange. The Quackers.
Okay, Quackers. Let's break that down. What were they, according to the Soviets?
So their sonar operators started detecting these objects, underwater contacts. But they were moving incredibly fast.
How fast?
The document says anywhere from 15 up to 70 knots. 70 knots. Yeah. That's significantly faster than pretty much any submarine could go back then.
70 knots underwater. Wow.
And not just fast. They were apparently making instantaneous 90-degree turns,
Yeah.
just zipping around in ways that known underwater vehicles simply couldn't. Defying physics, basically.
Okay, so what did the Soviets think they were initially?
Well, that was the problem. They were scratching their heads. Could it be some super advanced NATO experiment, a new sub or drone?
Plausible, I guess, during the Cold War.
Or maybe some, weird natural thing, an unknown underwater phenomena. But
Right.
then some started thinking it might be something stranger, something completely off the known charts.
And where were they detecting these things? Specific spots?
According to Red Waters, yeah. Key areas kept popping up.
Really?
The Arctic, definitely.
Yeah.
Lake Baikal, we'll come back to that one. The Black Sea, the Baltic Sea, too.
Quite spread out then, not just one location.
Suggests it wasn't just a localized glitch, right?
Yeah.
And they were just listening. They were actively trying to figure it out.
How?
Developing better sonar tech, specifically to track these erratic movements. The KGB got involved, looking into similar reports from other navies globally, trying to find patterns, explanations, anything.
So it wasn't just the Soviets seeing weird stuff down there.
Apparently not. The document mentions Western navies also had reports of fast movers, things they couldn't explain. Even U.S. intelligence was looking into it. Seems like both sides were encountering, well, anomalies.
Fascinating. Both sides of the Iron Curtain puzzled by the same underwater mystery.
Exactly. And think about the strategic implications. If you're the Soviet Navy, trying to run patrols, plan defenses, and there's potentially something else down there, moving faster and turning sharper than anything you've got.
Yeah, that would add a huge layer of uncertainty. You wouldn't know what you're really dealing with.
It apparently did influence their naval thinking, their doctrine, according to the research.
Okay, this is where Red Waters gets really specific, right? That Lake Baikal incident, July 1982. This wasn't just sonar blips. This involved divers.
Deep divers. They were doing a training exercise, apparently, down at something like 12,230 meters. Insanely deep.
And what happened?
They ran into. Well, the report says they encountered unusual beings, entities. Significant size, apparently exhibiting remarkable abilities underwater, and then communications just cut out. Abruptly lost contact.
Whoa,
Yeah.
okay. And what happened to the divers?
Well, some survived, but the medical reports on them are bizarre. Burns, but with no obvious heat source. Temporary paralysis in some cases. Weird radiation signatures detected on their bodies or equipment.
Radiation.
Yeah, and some divers reported heightened senses afterwards, even claims of seeing beings of light down there. It's pretty wild stuff.
That is deeply strange. What about the ones who didn't make it back?
That's maybe the most disturbing part. 2 divers, Sokolov and Baranov, were lost. But one of the survivors, a Sergeant Ivanovich, reportedly insisted they weren't dead.
What? What did he say happened?
He claimed they were taken for study by these entities. He seemed convinced they were alive somewhere down in the lake.
Taken for study. That's chilling.
And the gear they recovered also showed weirdness. Signs of exposure to unknown energy fields, comms equipment malfunctioning in ways that weren't just simple technical failure.
Okay, wow. Was there any other data, like acoustic recordings?
Oh, yeah. And the acoustic analysis is maybe the most concrete piece. Hydrophones picked up objects moving, estimated speed 70 to 95 kilometers per hour.
Again, super fast.
But here's the kicker. No cavitation.
Cavitation, like the bubbles from propellers.
Exactly. High-speed propellers create these vapor bubbles. The fact that these objects moving that fast didn't produce cavitation, it suggests some totally different, unknown propulsion system. Silent running at high speed.
Okay, that's a huge detail.
And there's more. They detected complex sound signals, way above human hearing range, 15 to 140 kilohertz. The structure looked mathematical, like potential communication.
Communication signals.
It suggested intelligence. Plus, a big energy spike recorded right when the divers vanished, and this weird, persistent, low-frequency hum that seemed to match the Earth's Schumann resonance.
The Earth's resonance. What's the connection?
The Schumann resonances are like the planet's natural electromagnetic heartbeat. The report suggests the amplitude of this hum fluctuated with the movement of these underwater objects, which is odd, to say the least.
So what happened to Sergeant Ivanovich, the survivor who claimed the others were taken?
His debriefing, his interrogation is another strange piece. He apparently claimed these entities weren't extraterrestrial.
Not aliens. Then what?
He said they'd been in the water much longer than humans been around, an indigenous intelligence maybe. And then apparently, after he started to describe what they showed him, he just shut down, became totally unresponsive.
Just stop talking.
Yeah, a complete mystery. unsettling.
It sounds like this Baikal incident was a pretty big deal for the
It
Soviets.
seems to have been a major trigger, yeah. Led to this highly classified investigation called Project Hydra.
Project Hydra sounds serious.
It was. Involved the KGB, the Navy, the Academy of Sciences. A big interdepartmental effort. Shows how seriously they were taking these encounters.
Yeah. And what were they trying to figure out? What were the theories within Project Hydra?
They considered a whole range, actually, from the somewhat conventional advanced foreign tech, NATO again,
Right.
to more exotic possibilities. Unknown biological species living deep down, actual extraterrestrial intelligence operating underwater, and even this idea of a non-human intelligence native to Earth that we just didn't know about.
Wow, they were really casting a wide net.
They had to, based on the evidence, I guess.
Yeah.
Different groups contributed findings. The Acoustic Research Institute confirmed those unique sound patterns, the Quacker signatures. No match for anything known, natural, or man-made. But interestingly, they found similar acoustic signatures in other deep spots, like the Mariana Trench.
The Mariana Trench, too.
And then the Biological Research Group found traces of silicon organic compounds in water samples from these encounter zones.
Silicon organic.
Yeah.
Not purely carbon-based life.
Potentially. And again, similar biological markers turned up in samples from Lake Vostok in Antarctica and the Mariana Trench, a possible link between these deep, isolated environments.
So acoustics, biology. What else did Project Hydra look at?
The KGB did a strategic assessment, basically weighing the probabilities of these different origins, foreign tech, ET, indigenous intelligence, etc. Just the fact they were assigning probabilities to ET or unknown Earth intelligence is pretty mind-blowing for a state intelligence agency.
Absolutely.
The Institute of Cybernetics got involved, too. They looked at psychological effects, those time perception anomalies the Baikal divers reported, the IQ increase in Sergeant Ivanovich after his encounter.
His IQ went up.
Apparently significantly, yes. And they even explored the possibility of telepathic communication, maybe even trying to develop some kind of symbolic language to try and communicate.
This is sounding more like science fiction than a military report.
It really pushes the boundaries, doesn't it? They also did historical analysis, found hundreds of reports globally, going back to the 1800s, describing similar phenomena.
Before the Cold War even started.
Way before. But they noted a big spike in reports correlating with the deployment of nuclear submarines. And these sightings seemed concentrated in deep ocean trenches and, of course, Lake Baikal.
Any sense of whether these things were hostile?
Well, the research mentions a multinational security assessment later on. The conclusion was basically no clear evidence of hostile intent.
Okay, that's something.
But there seemed to be a specific interest in nuclear tech subs, weapons maybe, and they even considered trying to establish communication protocols, just in case.
So this Project Hydra was purely Soviet, but later there was international cooperation.
Seems like it. In the late 90s, after the Cold War, there were these joint oceanographic expeditions. Researchers from different countries went back to these hotspots, Baikal, Mariana Trench, Barents Sea.
And what did they find? Did they confirm the Soviet findings?
Largely, yes, according to the document. They found weird geological formations, electromagnetic anomalies, confirmed the silicon organic compounds again, recorded acoustic events matching the Project Hydra classifications.
Any pictures this time?
The report mentions partial photographic evidence from the Mariana Trench, but details are apparently still classified. So tantalizing, but not fully revealed.
And this led to more data sharing.
Yeah, building a global database of encounters. And one interesting pattern that emerged from that was a correlation between peaks in nuclear weapons testing and spikes in USO activity.
Huh. A reaction to nuclear tests, maybe?
That's one interpretation, certainly. A very provocative finding.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here. Kitters Berlin, the Soviet USOs, the Quackers, Baikal, Project Hydra. If we boil it down, what are the main takeaways from this deep dive?
For me, it's the sheer consistency and persistence of these reports across decades and even across the Iron Curtain. Something unexplained was definitely being encountered underwater.
Right. The Quackers, the Baikal incident. The evidence points towards capabilities way beyond what was publicly known, technologically speaking, maybe even biologically.
And the Lake Baikal event with the divers, the physical effects, the acoustic data, it's just such a specific and bizarre case. It really anchors the phenomenon.
And bringing back Rebecca Kidder's story, it's this stark contrast, isn't it? The very human surface-level experience of Cold War tension in Berlin, happening at the same time as these, almost unbelievable secret investigations into deep-sea mysteries by the Soviets. Two completely different realities of the same era.
Yeah, the visible versus the hidden Cold War, in a way. Both shaping that period.
So it leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? Thinking about all this, the personal accounts, the official reports, these persistent mysteries, what else could be down there in those huge, unexplored parts of our oceans?
It does make you wonder.
And how might these Cold War glimpses into the unknown, how might they eventually change how we see our world and maybe even our own place in it? Definitely something to think about.
That's it for this episode of Hangar 51 Files, where we uncover the hidden, investigate the unexplained, and challenge the official story. If you found this episode insightful, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with those who refuse to accept surface-level narratives. For more deep dives, exclusive research, and behind-the-scenes content, visit www.hangar51files.com, our YouTube channel, at Hangar51Files, or our Substack, hangar51files.substack.com. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and keep questioning everything. This is Hangar 51 Files, signing off. No speculation, no clickbait, just hard-hitting research, expert analysis, and the pursuit of truth.